Hello and welcome to Comic Madness episode 93, volume 4. I'm Mike alongside.
Vincent.
And Vince, you got a haul this week?
Yeah. So I got, I guess, two books of note. I have Tarzan, the Russ Manning Years, volume 1. But I'm pretty sure this is the only volume. I think this is all of the Russ Manning Tarzan. So this is published by Dark Horse, and it reprints Tarzan comics from 1965 to 1967, originally published by Gold Key. The skipped Tarzan 155 to 161, 163, 164, 166, 167. Skipped issues are tie-ins to the TV show. They're not drawn by Russ Manning. And I don't know. I was doing a bit of research in Tarzan stuff, and I figured since it's a niche character and this isn't like a super popular book, I felt a little inspired and I made an impulse purchase particularly because like niche characters and reprints like this, like if I tried to buy this, like, ooh, there's this cool little embossed foil there.
Pretty cool.
If I tried to buy this like years from now, it'll probably end up costing like $300 eventually.
Probably.
So I figured I had a bit of impulse purchase motivation, and I just went for it. And on a very similar note, I got Don Newton's Complete the Phantom.
Oh.
So a lot smaller of a book than I expected.
That's really small.
These are all the Phantom stories and covers drawn by Don Newton. Eventually a major Batman artist, did some Captain Marvel stuff, DC's Captain Marvel, whatever, well, Fawcett's, etc.
Shazam.
Yes, Shazam, sure. And these were originally published by Charlton. And this book is published by Hermes Press, which is a tiny publisher in Neshonoc, Pennsylvania. I'm not certain where in the state that is, but Pennsylvania publisher. Interesting, in their credits, they credit Moose, the office dog. And I don't know, they do a lot of strip reprints and stuff, and they have some kind of deal with the Phantom, mostly with reprints, because I believe sometimes they've been reprinting Phantom stuff while others are publishing current Phantom stuff. And it's not like this is public domain or anything. This is from the 60s or 70s. And the restoration is not tip-top quality. It's a little muddy. You know, they don't have the full Marvel DC resources, but it's still totally readable. And they did a run of like just every Charlton. They pretty much reprinted every Phantom comic ever. And the Charlton era is what slightly interests me. But a lot of those books are like ridiculously expensive. So I went for this, and they have a Jim Aparo one, which I might check out eventually. Those are the artists that I guess are known for that era of the Phantom. So those are my books, some obscure superhero adjacent stuff.
Well, I just got back from vacation. I visited some comic shops there. Also, our other co-host Dan is on vacation this week, so we wish him a very happy vacation as he hopefully relaxes. But I went to a store that it was like $3 a back issue, but like 6 for 15. So I ended up grabbing Super Soldier Man of War from Amalgam Comics, Incredible Hulk 393, and then I bought a bunch of Flash issues. We have Flash number 98, part of Terminal Velocity, 78, which was part of the Return of Barry Allen with the cool Ty Templeton cover, and then Flash 53, which is a Messner Loeb's issue with Superman. And the last issue I bought, I found the Secret Origin special, which is like one of Neil Gaiman's first works. So I grabbed those for $15.
Cool stuff. That Hulk issue. So our friend Tina, who has a YouTube channel, she hasn't uploaded in a long time. So go comment angry comments on her channel. Her channel is called Wismer Whispers. It's on our sidebar. But I guess at some point, like, I don't know, did she find a bunch of comics in her attic or some shit? And then was like, who wants certain stuff? She gave me that Hulk issue for some reason. Of course, I'll probably just do
find that.
Huh?
I don't know why she had that.
I don't know. I don't think they were hers. And then I'll note that Super Soldier, that's Mark Waid and Dave Gibbons, pretty cool creative team, and that's one of the amalgam issues where they did basically a direct sequel with the exact same creative team. So you might want to be on the lookout for that whenever you go back issue diving again. So this week, our retro book, which whenever I'm talking about it, that's going to be the name, at least for the moment, that I'm going to be forcing on it, is Marvel Premiere #1. This is the first, well, it's not a first appearance at all. This is the first solo issue of Adam Warlock. This is by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane. And the setup, we think it's the setup, but it turns out to just be 2/3 plus of the issue. High Evolutionary is traveling through space in a dorky asteroid. He uses the word peripatetic, which I meant to look up in the dictionary, because Roy Thomas pulling out the big boy words, which I don't recognize. So who knows what that means? I'll look it up after the fact. But we get a lot of footnotes, which is sort of cool, to previous High Evolutionary appearances. We get I believe his first appearance from Thor 134 to 135, the time he fought the Hulk in Tales to Astonish 94 to 95. And he finds a cocoon floating in space. And inside the cocoon is a person who is known as him at this point. And him dumps his whole backstory on the High Evolutionary through telepathy, talks about his first appearance in Fantastic Four 66 and 67, how he came to fight Thor, but we don't get a footnote for that. And then, like, the Wolf Animan attack, and Warlock's finally back. There's some fighting going on, and whatever. Basically, this is a High Evolutionary story, not an Adam Warlock story. Adam Warlock doesn't appear like fully outside of his cocoon on the page until like 75% of the issue's over, and it's pretty boring. I know, Mike, I think you really hate the High Evolutionary for some reason.
I've yet to read a story where I enjoyed the High Evolutionary being in it.
I don't have such a hate for him, but this was fucking really boring.
I mean, you fell asleep reading this, and I fell asleep reading this.
Well, I almost fell asleep. So I was laying down on the couch trying to read it on my phone, and
well, that was your first bad mistake, because trying to read that issue on your phone is awful.
I had one of those moments where I'm holding my phone and I'm like getting drowsy, and so then I kind of like totally drop my phone as like my body like is trying to shut down, and then the fact of me dropping it just shocked me awake, and I caught my phone. But then I was like, fuck, this is just boring.
So you're just doing the head dip thing the whole time.
Yep. So that was that.
I have nothing much to add to it. It's not good.
Scale 1 to 5.
I give it a 5 out of 50.
Yeah, I mean, you could have just said, yeah, it's not good. So this is Warlock. This is Marvel Premiere #1, and I think he might only appear in this issue and then gets his own series. Let me quickly check.
Is it safe to say that I don't care about most people don't care about Adam Warlock until Jim Starlin.
Entirely correct. So he appears in Marvel Premiere number 1 and 2, and then Warlock 1 through 8. And that's all. I believe most of that is this Thomas Kane team, and no one cares about that stuff. And then Starlin brings back, I believe at first Strange Tales is first, and then after those few appearances are very, very well received, they revive the Warlock title for 9 through 15. But if for some reason you find it super cheap and you think it would be a weird, gimmicky companion to your Starlin collection, the Marvel Masterworks Warlock Volume 1 was released in a paperback version. So, I don't know. If you're a completist, go track that down.
If you really love Adam Warlock.
Yes. So this time, I'm going to reveal the next retro book at the end of the show. So you have to stay all the way till then for the big reveal. Otherwise, getting into our modern day books. And this time we're starting off with some indie stuff. And Mike reads some indie stuff that no one cares about, so he's going to start.
I mean, both of my books are good though, so.
Well, you have 3 books.
2 of them are good. Starting things off from Boom Studios, Angel #2 by Brian Edward Hill and Gleb Melnikov. So Angel's still on the track of this demon that's kind of that's preying people through social media, and we get some backstory stuff with him as back in Angelus, back in time. He sees this his friend that was murdered the last issue. He's investigating there, and then we see Winifred. In the show, she goes by Fred, who's like in a mental institution, and she gets attacked by the demon, and Angel kind of saves her. So we're jumping kind of right away to her. She didn't show up until like the end of season 2, and really didn't become kind of a core member of the cast until like season 3. So it's kind of cool to. So this is like the first character from the show of his core cast that we've seen so far, because Cordelia's still in Buffy, and then so same goes with Spike, and the rest of the gang from his show isn't there yet. So Gunn's not there yet either. But this was still pretty good. I like where this is going, and I'm really liking the art. Some really cool coloring visuals here too, and then some different art styles as it's showing Angel through time. So yeah, it's still pretty good. And then heading up to Bad Luck Chuck #4. This could be the final issue. We could possibly see more. Definitely leaves the door open, but the monk monastery is attacked by all the converging forces, and Chuck and her friends kind of lose, but due to her bad luck powers, the jail cell breaks at the end of it, and they escape. And it kind of sets up an A-Team like thing where if you can find them out in Los Angeles and you're in trouble and you can hire them, then you can hire her and her gang of pals to help you out of a situation. This was a fun series. I hope to see more of it, because I think there's a lot of fun ideas you can take it in. But if this is it, this is a fun 4 issues, I'd say. And like I said, writing and art was solid the whole way through.
Cool. So there's 1 left?
Well, you have Marilyn Mann.
No, I mean Bad Luck Chuck.
No, this is it. I think this was it.
Okay.
Unless the door's open for more, but I think it was just solicited for 4.
Okay.
Unless the sales were strong enough to have a comeback on. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right. I'm gonna check in with Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manor #1.
Marilyn Manson.
This is from IDW's Black Crown, which is their little post-Vertigo imprint led by Shelley Bond, similar to Berger Books, which is over at Dark Horse, led by Karen Berger. And this is prescient as Vertigo has died. This is written by Max Visaggio and drawn by Marlo Zarconi. And the setup here is that it's a bratty. The main character is this bratty girl in the 80s, but she's the president's daughter. And there's this weird thing where I guess her father, who is not JFK, this is in the 80s, her father is a guy named Kelleher from Virginia. He's a former Virginia governor, so he's not a real president. But her father, the president in the 80s, back in the 60s, had a very quick fling, or maybe just one night, with Marilyn Monroe. And her mother learned about it, and so out of spite, her mother named her child Marilyn. It's kind of fucked up. And her dad is away on a diplomatic mission, and also there's something going wrong, like the White House isn't active or something. So she wants to throw a big rager in the White House, and Secret Service is like, obviously, no, fuck that. But she accidentally almost knocks over a bust of James Madison, which reveals a secret getaway passageway. And we meet her friend Janice, who goes by Abe because she claims to be possessed by the ghost of Abraham Lincoln through it messing with a Ouija board. And that's weird. And then later, this Abe / Janice character, I guess, has a thing for Marilyn, but Marilyn has no idea about it. But she gets all of the people into the White House through this secret passageway. And also in the passageway is a sex dungeon that JFK and Marilyn Monroe used. So at least in this continuity, JFK also had an affair with Monroe. So in this storyline, we have multiple presidents across different decades who had affairs with Marilyn Monroe. And the main character, we get some flashback of just how like bratty she is. At a re-election rally for her dad's second term, she flipped off the crowd on the stage, which is kind of funny. Like, just imagine like Molly Obama, like just flipping off everyone. So the party is happening via this escape tunnel. Billy Idol is at the party, and the Secret Service guy is really pissed. That's basically it.
Is there a banner that says "Rock the Vote" anywhere? Because that would really complete everything.
No, I don't think so. This is kind of fun with the history stuff. Like, there's discussion of like dumb like Abraham Lincoln things, and in this like JFK sex dungeon. The art is really slick. I don't think I'm gonna keep reading it, but it was fun to check in.
All right. You ready to head over to Image and talk about Spawn?
As ready as I can be.
Spawn number 298, The Road to 300 continues. No longer are we recapping 100 issues of Spawn in 22 pages. We're actually have plot moving forward. We have Todd McFarlane on the script and plot, and Jason Sean Alexander on art. So same creative team. We got Al Simmons, who we know revealed his identity to the mass public on the news, and he has this reporter buddy that he's zapping around, and his reporter buddy is getting captured and interrogated by like these government agents, and it turns out that they're agents of the Redeemer. So Spawn just comes in and just kills them, and then we get a bunch of talking head segments of like what Al Simmons is doing. Is it good? Is it bad? And then like you get like the Alex Jones like kind of crazy person. And then we get to Nick. We cut back to a character named Nyx, who was last seen in issue 122. So she's got mystic skills, and I guess teamed up with Spawn in the past. And Spawn and is reported to be going to find her, and then a bunch of Redeemer agents find them, and they got to fight them. So there you go. And then it's revealed that Spawn 300 will be a 72-page issue.
Nice. Which is I mean that I guess that's basically what 80 pagers are. It's just you account for ads.
But hey, an all-star cast on Spawn 300 when we get to it. McFarlane, Capullo, Jason Sean Alexander, J. Scott Campbell, Jerome Opeña, and Scott Snyder.
This was 298, right?
Yeah, so
you still have 299.
You still got 299, but the they're going to fight the Rapture and Heaven's Answer of the Mythic Four Horsemen in the next issue. So things are ramping up. This is fun. I probably am not sticking past issue 300 on this.
But 301, I believe Todd's doing interior art.
Ooh, don't do that to me, Todd.
All right. Now we're going to move into Marvel stuff with Amazing Spider-Man. What number?
24. Or do you want the legacy number, which is 825?
I would prefer the legacy number. Actually, we should just use legacy numbers on every relevant book going forward.
Well, if we're doing to do that, if we ever start covering Avengers again, we got to subtract 10.
Sure.
But so Amazing Spider-Man, I'm sticking with 24 just because to keep my head straight. Ryan Ottley's back on art. You excited about that?
Yeah.
As the last issue wrapped up everything from the wild Craven Hunt storyline, we get good Peter and MJ moments as they're. I don't know what building this is.
Yeah, I assume it's supposed to be something we would know if we were familiar with New York.
But they're just like Peter just like makes like a web bed in it, and MJ's just like, you can't get in trouble for being up here, right? And then eventually he does get yelled at, but Pete's just continuously thinking about the vision he got from Craven of MJ like dying, so he can't sleep and he's kind of restless about that. And the rest of the issue is all about Mysterio getting like this psych evaluation, dealing with like the weird bug zombie like villain that we've seen from the beginning of Spencer's run. But even through that, we get like the greatest hits of Mysterio in here, like Guardian Devils, even referenced. So I mean, because I know Far From Home comes out next week, I feel like this definitely was picked for that reason. But eventually, his psych analyst is just like, you got to say this guy's name because Mysterio's still afraid to say it, and it's hinted that this new villain is kind of the reason why he was able to come back alive, back when he died originally. But because of Mysterio's background being a special effects artist, he his evaluator is like, I don't even believe you died and anything. So eventually, the room starts shaking and the guy does show up, and he actually ends up killing Mysterio. And I guess Spider-Man saw this in his dream because he wakes up in like a cold sweat having a nightmare. But we know that this villain's name is now Kindred. So
well, it's not really clear because the villain is like, I'm not going to reveal my name, but you can call me this or something. I don't know if this is the guy's like final villain name, but this is what we're going to call him.
I'm calling him Kindred.
The Ollie art was fun. There's some kind of funny Mysterio bits. I don't really. I think it's cool how it calls back to Guardian Devil, as well as, I guess, wasn't it the Free Comic Day issue or the first issue of the series involved Mysterio?
Yeah.
And I think the like J. Jonah Jameson thing, I assume that's from Zdarsky's Spectacular Run or something.
Possibly. I didn't read Zdarsky's Spectacular Run.
Or I mean, actually, it could be Tom Taylor for all we know, in Friendly Neighborhood. But I enjoyed this. I don't fully understand the mechanics of, is Mysterio actually dead again right now, and did Pete actually see this, etc.
We'll find out in the next issue.
Yeah, and then did you read this weird backup page?
Yeah, this is the second one of these weird backups. We've solved one of them in Symbiote Spider-Man, and now this one is Spider-Man's just hanging out on a rooftop eating a slice of pizza, and a dove lands down, and he gives him his crust, and then it's like attacked by like this carnage thing.
No, I don't think it's attacked. I think it's a carnage dove.
Oh, it is a carnage. Yeah, it is a carnage dove. Yeah, whatever. I don't know who Clay McLeod Chapman is.
He's writing I believe he writes Black Cat. If not that, he wrote some of those like digital first books, which went from digital then to OGN. But I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the symbiote one at all. But did that have like symbiote stuff involved?
It only did because it was like referencing the guy, like looking up and seeing like the cover of the first like Spider-Man cover with the black suit, not the Secret Wars one, the one where he's like swinging and carrying people. That's kind of like the Amazing Fantasy 15 cover.
Okay, then I don't know because this one
I
is
have no idea.
because this one is clearly like a tease for Absolute Carnage.
Yeah,
But I didn't remember that the last one was like that.
I don't think it was.
I guess it was tangentially symbiote connected due to the Secret Wars stuff. But Spider-Man's good. This is all like sort of could be a one-off issue. I'm not really certain if the next issue goes right into this Kindred guy, but it could. But he could go either way with it. I didn't think to look at solicitations or whatever. So Magnificent Miss Marvel #4. I think the legacy number is probably 51 or 52.
It's 61.
Oh, that's what I meant to say. I meant to say 61 because 57 was the end of the Wilson run. So at the end of the last issue, they were trying to escape away on a little tiny ship, and they got blasted in the sky. So everyone died. Actually, no, they survived. Everyone is alive, and really no scratches at all. They find these. They go in the tunnels, and the rebel dude turns out is the evil king's son. And there's a flashback, and I guess this flashback takes place before this entire Ahmed run. And we have Kamala and Bruno being honest about their relationship together, but that's interrupted by her dad with some other woman, which like totally could just be anything. But I guess Kamala jumps to a conclusion and thinks maybe he's cheating on her mother.
Right.
Like that's what implied, but like he's just walking in with a woman, and like the woman like puts her like hand on his arm or something, but there's like it's not like she catches them kissing each other. But whatever. And so she's kind of stressing about that behind the scenes. They save some villagers, and then I believe this is the first time in this series that someone calls her Magnificent.
Yeah.
Her adjective, which is interesting to see. I mean, when they used to have like 4 Spider-Man titles, it was always funny when in Spectacular someone said it's the Spectacular Spider-Man instead of Amazing or anything like that. There's this big battle scene. The bad guys take her parents hostage, and so she's about to bend the knee when the Slave Master Beast legions show up. And I really just have the same reaction to this issue that I do every issue. The art is amazing. I'm okay with all of with Ahmed's voice for Kamala. I don't have any nitpicks with that. I just don't understand why he decided to do this ridiculous cosmic story for this character who's generally very grounded and is dealing with either street level crime or like socio-political issues in Jersey City. And I don't necessarily even have a problem with this kind of arc, but I don't know why you'd kick off with it.
I think the story's fine. I just think it's paced really slowly. Like I think that's with just the advent of some other book. I think this is only monthly. So it feels like we've been here a while and not much has happened in these 4 issues. But I'd say this might be my favorite colored book by Marvel right now. Ian Herring's colors are amazing.
Yeah, the art is fantastic on all levels.
Yeah.
Now I had the unfortunate opportunity to read.
You had the pleasure
to read Major X #6. This is the final issue. Liefeld actually pencils this, which I was very excited about.
He bookends it.
There are 3 inkers here. One of them is actually himself, but still, I would like him to ink the entire book. So the plot here, future Namor has a sea serpent which is kind of a derpy looking sea serpent. It's like really fat in some areas and really thin in others. He wants to take and or kill Major X and Storm, who was revealed last issue to be Major X's mother, with Cable. And someone, I believe it's Jubilee, because this is like the other, well, so Jubilee calls the serpent a, quote, savage dragon, which is kind of funny. It has to be a joke. And this is all set in the past, of course, since it's coming out alongside Age of X-Men, when most of the X-Men characters in this book are not around and presumed dead. And this most of the X-Men, this is basically the X-Men Red team, because it's like Jean Grey, Storm, Bishop, I think was on that team, and they make reference, and Jean Grey references like, okay, if Namor goes crazy in the future, we need to talk about that next time I see him, because he was at least briefly on that Red team. And also that line is a little funny in light of Invaders also coming out at this time, where Namor's kind of cuckoo. But I'm almost certain Liefeld doesn't know about that and doesn't care about that. So it's just coincidence. And then Old Man Cable and Deadpool show up, and they're posing in the splash page. Especially Cable, the Cable part of this page and the overall positioning of both characters is very clearly either homage / swipe, it depends on how you want to look at it, of Liefeld's own cover for Cable and Deadpool #1. And Cable is in exactly the same pose with a tube gun and everything, but Deadpool is differently. In this, he has guns. In that original cover, he had knives or something like that. And there's a fight. The fight ends. Everyone teleports away. And basically the ending status quo is that Old Man Cable, Major X, and the gray beast, future beast thingy thing, they go to do shit in the timeline. And there's an opening for them to ever come back, because Storm and Jean are like, hey, if you want to come hang out and make a guest appearance ever again, you're welcome. And unless Liefeld wants to jump in on this again, or 20 years from now, someone nostalgic for this starts writing the books, I don't expect to see Major X that much outside of Liefeld returns. But the long-term impact then is that Storm in the future / alternate universe has a child with Cable. So that'll be on her wiki page from now on.
Vince, if you can't get enough, are you going to check out Major X #0?
No, I believe what Major X #0 is it reprints like some very obscure Wolverine issues from like 2000, which were drawn by Liefeld, because they're the first appearance of Dreadpool, who appears in this issue. Well, in this series. And like some other really stupid, obscure villains that Liefeld created for like 2 Wolverine issues. And I imagine they'll have like some behind the scenes like bullshit in that issue too. I will. So I've kind of like, sort of, at least in my mind, toned down my X-Men completionism. So I will most likely not be buying this in trade.
I call that. I supremely call that.
So staying sort of in the X-Men realm, at least initially, our next book is Marvel Comics Presents #6.
You should staying in the 90s realm, really.
Yeah, true.
Because
So
Marvel Comics Presents #6 is Deadpool, Danny Ketch, Ghost Rider, and Wolverine.
Yeah, talk about that last part, aka or otherwise the first part of this issue, and the part I don't care about.
All right, yeah. So this Wolverine story that Charles Soule keeps managing to have it go on and on. You know how Wolverine has like 5,000 kids?
Yes.
He has another.
Joy.
Because remember, he slept with like the old, the girl that was the witch, like sorceress, in the past. So now, and it was implied that she has a kid from it. That kid's all grown up and joins Wolverine and the X-Men when they're fighting this demon thing again. And she's got like glowy bone claws and she looks like Valkyrie.
Yeah, I just flipping through it. I wasn't sure about her like breastplate thing. I don't know what the point of that was for.
Yeah.
This issue technically, we'll get to in a second. This issue technically introduces multiple Wolverine children.
Yeah, I was gonna say. But yeah, it happened. I don't like this story, but at least the art was good.
Wolverine has at least, technically now, he has at least 17, and this is counting some alternate universe stuff. He has at least 17 kids. It's probably
How
like
many have you
5.
killed?
Oh, and he's killed probably, and some of them have come back alive, but he's killed at least like 5 of them. It's ridiculous. So the other story in this is the Flash, like the set in the era story. So this is a Deadpool story by Tim Seeley and Riley Brown. Riley Brown, I believe, has done quite a bit of Deadpool stuff. I think he may have been one of the occasional contributors to the Jerry Duggan run. And this issue, and also these like set in the era ones, they usually have like a little blurb on the credits page. And so this blurb talks about the 90s comics crash, which is kind of weird and like funny and odd
Well,
because
one of
Marvel,
the Marvel Age stories was the release of Star Wars, so
yeah, but Marvel has the Star Wars license and did back then, and Star Wars is, considered a positive thing. The 90s comics crash, very interesting to address it, and also interesting because Marvel, on multiple fronts, for different reasons, strongly contributed to it and led to it. I mean, they have the speculator stuff, which this issue goes in on, but Marvel single-handedly started the distributor war, which really was the direct crash of the industry, and led to a monopolistic distributor and some of our current woes. But Deadpool, in the beginning of this issue, he's in his Merc era. He's hunting a guy with a Stone Temple Pilots T-shirt on,
yep.
and the Stone Temple Pilots guy turns out to be some generic supervillain, which I don't think his name is initially shown at all here. Like he doesn't say I'm. I think it's Rays, but he doesn't say I'm Rays. So Deadpool somehow learns that out, and he attacks Deadpool, and he crashes through the window of a comic book store, and it's New Comic Book Day, and this store owner is like, "Yeah, comics are selling like crazy."
That store owner that looks like a comic book guy from Simpsons.
Yeah, there's a sign that says limit 10 copies per customer. So, and he shows him as an example Force Pack #1, which is #1 polybagged with a trading card, and it's basically, I think the joke is like, what if Power Pack went like 90s cable?
Yeah.
Because it basically yeah, it's like if Alex Power looked like cable or something.
It's literally Cable's body with Alex Power's head on it.
And so Deadpool's like, I'm gonna cash in. He founds a comic book publisher somehow on top of Four Freedoms Plaza, and he rips off the story of the character that he was meant to track down in
Question:
the beginning.
Four Freedoms Plaza, not the Baxter Building?
It is. It's, well, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
That was just like the name for their complex for an era.
Okay.
And he knows that first issues sell the most, so why do anything but first issues? Just only release #1s. And he has like his bullpen, tells the guy to keep cross hatching. He talks about getting Wizard articles and movie deals.
Yep.
And wrapped up in all this, he makes a new costume entirely made out of chromium.
Yep. It's
And then he's hanging out at the coffee shop with Death's Head 2, Night Watch, and Century. So Century is this stupid character from Forceworks. Night Watch is a stupid generic vigilante character. But this is complicated because Night Watch was pretty much entirely retconned out of Marvel history in Charles Soule's She-Hulk, which I really hated that Charles Soule did that. But also, assuming that's canon, this is weird. And Reyes attacks him, and he's like, "Hey, I didn't allow you to rip off my image for your comic book." You know, he should have just sued him. But he shows up with a gang of friends, and they're all like cringy, like '90s like stereotypes. One of them is clearly like a amalgam of Shatterstar and Slapstick,
Yep.
including including having like the slapstick cartoony style, which is really weird. The others are just like generic, like one is like a hot, sexy nun, one's a hot, sexy nurse, and they
The nun is called S.H.I.E.L.D. She's got psi powers.
yes, and then there's Knife Nurse,
Yep.
and there's like a weird like baby,
There's a
but
baby that's just named QP.
yeah, but it's kind of funny, and so they attack him and whatever, and that's the end of the story. Oh no, the end of the story is he crashes through the thing again, and the guy's like, "Yeah, the industry crashed, and you kind of played a role in it." Deadpool's like, "Fuck." So then the third story here, and I always get confused. I know we're 6 issues in, and I'm stupid, but I always get confused on these third stories because it takes me a while to figure out whether it's supposed to be set in the era.
I'm confident all of these third stories take place today.
Yeah,
Today's
I just can't. I can't figure that out each time until I get to the end.
right.
So this is a Ghost Rider story by Ed Brisson and Juan Frigeri. Importantly, this is a Danny Ketch Ghost Rider story.
Yeah.
And I guess Danny owns a bar now in Brooklyn. I don't know if that's new to this story.
I couldn't tell you because I haven't seen Danny Ketch in a comic book in forever.
Yeah. I mean, I read almost all of Damnation, including the Ghost Rider one shot, but I don't remember. Like Danny was not really much in that. Johnny was a major player, but Danny was there, but he was more like a background thing. So I don't know when this could have happened. Um, and so he transforms into the Rider and goes to Cypress Hill Cemetery, as always. And here's where things get iffy and my potential nitpicks start popping up. Is that Briston is writing the Ghost Rider as basically having Danny Ketch's voice, or like Danny being able to like speak through the Ghost Rider, which traditionally, especially the Danny Ketch version, it was really like two separate personalities, similar to
Yep.
like the original version of Captain Marvel, or similar to most versions of the Hulk and stuff like that. But he comes across Wallow messing with a funeral party. So Wallow, if you recall, I assume he was never named on screen, was in the first Ghost Rider movie with Nicolas Cage. I just figured that out today. But the comics character first appeared in Ghost Rider number 87, which is near the end of the run in the mostly disliked era written by Ivan Velez. And that issue, Wallow's first appearance, was drawn by Pop Man, and that's the orange jumpsuit era. And back then in that direct period, that also wasn't like entirely Danny. That was after the retcon, the Noble Kale introduction, where it's revealed that the Ghost Rider that Danny's attached to is not Zarathos, which Ghost Rider fans knew pretty quickly because Johnny Blaze came into Danny's story because he heard there was a new Ghost Rider, and he was like, "I'm gonna fuck up Zarathos."
Right. And he became Blaze with the Hellfire shotgun.
Yeah, and it's revealed, and they find out the status quo for Danny basically through most of his era was it's definitely not Zarathos, but I don't fucking know. But eventually, it's revealed that it's Noble Kale, who is an ancestor of Danny and also Johnny, because it was revealed that they're kind of brothers. That said, even though I don't like the Pop Man art and I hate the stupid orange jumpsuit era, I don't really have any interest in that part of the run at all. The original Wallow design was pretty cool. His cloak was more like symbiote-esque, and the doll mask just covered like the top half of his head. He was a little more creepy. And this, it's just like, here's a guy who wears a black cloak and a doll mask. But it's still whatever, half interesting design. And in the end of his first appearance, Ghost Rider sent him to Hell, where Blackheart greets him. And Blackheart is like, "Hey, welcome to Hell. You're now my slave." And then for issue 90, a few issues later, Javier Saltares returned to the character, and also the leather jacket did. And that starts the final arc where eventually Ghost Rider Danny Ketch becomes the king of Hell. And in his path to that, Wallow is one of Blackheart's minions. And on that note, as I did the research for that and refreshed myself on that, that is all to set up that this story has to take place in the present.
Right.
Because he first met him in 87, he goes to Hell, and then his next meeting with him was beating the shit out of him in Hell and becoming the king of Hell. And he's talking about how he's already sent him to Hell. But
Right.
also, like, it's kind of complicated whether Danny should have those memories, whatever. But this is in the present. The other nitpick question is the lettering. So Ghost Rider's lettering in this issue is just black balloons with white text. In a lot of Ghost Rider books, and especially almost the whole 90s run, you had kind of cheesy like fire effects around the balloons.
Right.
So I don't know if the letterer, Joe Caramagna, didn't go back and look at Ghost Rider books, or I assume maybe the editor was like, yeah, don't do that.
I mean, Joe's also lettering like a lot of books.
Yeah, well, that's the life of a letterer. But I'm just going to blame it on the editor. When in doubt, blame everything on the editors. And then he turns back into Danny to like kind of distract Wallow, to trick him, and then sends Wallow back to Hell. And the final page reveal is Wallow's in Hell, and the current king of Hell, at least this part of Hell, is Johnny Blaze.
Right.
So now he's stuck with another Ghost Rider. This was all right.
I liked it. I mean, for me, it was like, all right, here's Danny Ketch's greatest hits. You got the motorcycle, you got the cemetery, you got the pennant stare.
Yeah, there was bits of nostalgia. It's just like there's like two like super nitpicky things where I'm like, and then I thought how it turned around and embraced like the current multiple layers of Ghost Rider continuity with the different riders and had Johnny Blaze. I thought that was fun, and I'm very interested. I don't expect this random Marvel Comics Presents #6 story to be a foreshadowing of anything to come, but Marvel recently teased something Ghost Rider related, and it seems to be comic based because they've already announced that Robbie Reyes is going to have a TV show. So I expect it could be Johnny, it could be Danny, it could be Robbie. Obviously, Robbie is also still appearing in Avengers, but I expect maybe within the next solicit cycle, so within the next 3 weeks or so, we might get some kind of Ghost Rider comics announcement, which I'm very excited for, but I could potentially be very, very excited or moderately excited.
I'm excited, but also like they keep it's like every 3 to 5 years they keep trying to relaunch it, and it doesn't get past like 7 issues. So
yeah, well, I think the challenge is, I mean, this is not a great comparison, but you just sort of go with me here. Think of Immortal Hulk. So Hulk, since really like the Greg Pak era, it's just been relaunched, various creative teams, various directions, and it hasn't been huge. And now it is actually Marvel's best-selling comic book, like outselling Amazing Spider-Man.
It is outselling Batman.
Yeah, in certain months and stuff. But yeah. Immortal Hulk is a huge deal right now. And I attribute that to a great premise, a great writer, a great artist, and the writer and artist on every single issue very consistently, and fan support and everything like that. And when you look at the relaunches of Ghost Rider, at least since Jason Aaron, it's like they haven't come out really strong with it and launched it. And you can also, and it's not just Hulk, like this. Obviously, what I'm speaking is common sense. But like another example is Venom. Like, with the movie coming out and 90s nostalgia and everything, Marvel was like, here's a Venom, here's a Venom, here's a Venom. Like after they ended, after like Cullen Bunn, that Venom book got canceled. You had the Agent Venom stuff. I mean the cosmic Venom stuff, and then you had like the whole Mike Costa era and like that fake Venom that they had for the first 5 issues and stuff. And then Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman blew the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I think in certain respects, especially the specific premise of Immortal Hulk, like if they launch Ghost Rider, whether it is Danny or Robbie or Johnny, I mean, it really could be all three at this point. So I'm sort of hopeful and interested that maybe it's not Robbie, even though he's having a TV show coming up. Maybe they're like, we don't have to go that way in the comics again because he's on the Avengers. So I don't know, but whoever it is, whatever, Ghost Rider, you just come out really strong and decide, here's a creative team. We're going to stick with this creative team. Hopefully, people actually like it, and if they like it, we're going to stick with it, and we're going to keep it consistent and of a certain tone. I think a Ghost Rider book could be big right now.
It could. I think the other defining factor you're missing is Al Ewing talked at length when he got the Hulk how much of a fan of the Hulk he was. And then it's Cates and Stegman have been outspoken on how much they like Venom. So you also have to get the right guy that's a major fan of the character to get that love in there of it.
Well, I think that's a mixed bag. The whole inmates running the asylum. I think sometimes it's the best choice, and sometimes it's the worst choice. I think that could really work for Ghost Rider, especially if it's Danny, because and I think that's where it could work, because especially the Venom comparison fits there as well, because Cates, he's at the age, and a lot of these upcoming writers are at the age where they have 90s nostalgia. So Cates likes Eddie Brock Venom, and for all that, and if someone grew up the same era, there have to be comics writers who are obsessed with Danny Ketch. Like, there's no way that they're not.
Perfect example would be when I was at one of the stores at the shore. It was a guy, like I overheard the guy talking to like the shop owner, saying like, "Oh, this is like the first time I've read comics since like McFarlane was drawing Spider-Man." So like the dude had been out for the game for a while, and he was even asking what's Danny Ketch up to. So yeah, and then the guy was like, "Oh yeah, he's not really in books anymore. There's a new Ghost Rider named Robbie Reyes though." And then he told him about Cosmic Ghost Rider, but yeah, especially for a character like Danny, you almost kind of have a clean slate too for if you want to start a new book with him, because he hasn't been used in such a long time.
Yeah, I would be hyped. And honestly, and we'll get to this in a second, but I would welcome a Ghost Rider 80th anniversary one shot. Why not?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, as far as this TV show goes, make it happen. Get Nicolas Cage to show up as Johnny Blaze. Do it. Do it.
Okay, so unfortunately, Ghost Rider, despite being on the event, one of them being on the Avengers, and by the same writer, I don't think Ghost Rider shows up in the next issue we're talking about.
No, he doesn't. He was in the last issue with Doctor Strange. As they were chopping dark elves with axes. But War of the Realms #6. I want to say this wraps up the series, but we have the Omega issue after this.
Yes.
So it wraps up, but it doesn't wrap up, is what I'm saying. Same creative team here. Basically, like I thought the last issue, all the Thors were going to come in and help the main Thor, and that's exactly what happens. Thor loses an eye building the new world tree, and also gives up the last fragment of Mjolnir. And then King Thor joins the fight as he talks to regular Thor. They bring in young Thor, and then Jane comes in, and they all go and attack Malekith as the rest of the forces are fighting Laufey and the rest of the Frost Giants. We get Thor finally reforges Mjolnir, so he gets Mjolnir back, and it's fully made by by Thor, who forged it this time. I guess that's the big takeaway here. But hey, good guys win, Thor's win, and Thor's now the Allfather. He's the king of Asgard, everybody. Ta-da!
Yeah.
I like this. This was fun.
There's fun parts. I just like there's still I'm iffy on Aaron's whole like basically his impact on Thor. Like when he's losing his eye and just in the very beginning, he's like he says that Mjolnir is all that makes him Thor. And it's like first of all, no.
Well, he learns that Mjolnir all that isn't what makes him Thor by the end, though.
Yes. But then but then it's like okay, he's all father. He's all
the journey with the Mjolnirs we made along the way.
He's all father Thor at the end,
right?
And the thing is, like, you really have to fuck around if you wanted to reverse this as a future writer, which is, in my opinion, a bad thing. Because making Thor all father, it's like you can't really go back from that. It's not quite like where you would need a one more day level thing, but it would be pretty hard for an upcoming writer to be like, yeah, Odin's a dick again and demoted Thor, and now he's just Thor, and Odin's
okay, but that's what's going to happen because Odin's an asshole, and it's eventually going to happen, and you're talking about a medium that's cyclical, so stop getting mad about it.
I think my point is I think Aaron made too much change to a in perpetuity character. And again, Thor will have his arm again at some point. Thor will have his eye again at some point.
Thor will be back in his original costume, and everything will be put back in the chest by the time Aaron's done.
So here's another nitpick. Well, first of all, I'll give a positive nitpick / note. There's the page where Carol is looking for the King of the Snowflakes, and she's covered in blood. That's going to be a really funny out of context panel.
Oh, I know. I saw that. Once I saw that, I was like, "Yep."
Why is Iron Man dressing the Punisher by his first name? Super nitpicky, but I'm like, would that ever happen? Is that in character for anyone?
I mean, I don't know. It's comics.
Yeah.
It's an event.
And also, the All-Father Thor, the previous All-Father Thor, like the one actually from the future, makes a joke about craft beer, which I don't know about the Asgardians. I don't know if they'd go for all the craft beer. I feel like they're hardcore, like me dudes. And I think it was interesting Jane does not become Valkyrie in this issue. And Loki's status quo is not entirely clear. Like he makes one comment when he rips out of his father's stomach, where like maybe his like long-term next status quo is that he's king of the frost giants. Like that would make sense. But he's gonna have some dumb miniseries coming up, and yeah, so we get teases for like the various series flowing out of this, and one of them is Aaron doing King Thor. But the question is, and what we will await is, who will write Thor next? That will be pretty interesting because Aaron has had, I believe in the backup of this issue, they say that this has been a 7-year run.
Yeah, it's been a long run, and it's not over yet, but we're entering the final act of it, and we'll see how it goes. I might jump on Thor after this just to see what the next arc's going to be.
Well, I think it only has like 2 more issues, and it'll just
really?
It'll probably be a fallout of this, and then a finale, and then Aaron will do the King Thor miniseries, and technically he'll be co-writing Valkyrie. But after I'm assuming they won't announce the next Thor until after King Thor's done. Maybe I don't know if they would have 2 Thor series run at the same time, but I'm very excited to see who will be writing Thor. Some people are kind of like guessing or thinking or hoping Donny Cates, but I think that's very unlikely because he's
It's
already on.
unlikely just because that'd be a third ongoing, not a miniseries for
Yeah,
him.
he's on 2 well-selling ongoings, and both are major properties. He's about to do. He's doing a miniseries, though. I assume he's already finished writing that whole thing by this point, actually. And he's about to jump into a giant event. So I don't see him doing that unless it's again like 6 months out, which it could be, but still, does he do 3 ongoings? I don't think so. But will be interesting.
All
I
right,
don't know. I don't know who they go with.
let's speed through Wolverine Exit Wounds
Okay.
because we're running long here.
All right.
We got Wolverine Exit Wounds. It's like the Hulk one, the Last Call one shot that came out, but instead of being run writer, we got 3 stories here. I want to take the first story, which is Red and Tooth and Claw, which is a Larry Hama written story, and we got Scott Eaton on pencils. This is really just a standard Abraham Cornelius watches Wolverine through a tube at the Weapon X program, and he fights some wolves, and we get a collection of Wolverine's memories of like what he's thinking is real and what isn't. And that's pretty much it. This is kind of a needless story almost because we've seen this before how many times?
Yeah, not special, nothing new here. And compared to, Barry Windsor Smith, this is a joke.
Yeah.
We didn't need it.
Nope.
So then we have a story from the classic long-running creative team of Chris Claremont, Salvador LaRocca. Wolverine is in Japan with Kitty and Yukio. I always laugh at like this portrayal of Yukio. Like I don't understand her hair, whatever. They're protecting ramen recipes. This family is being shaken down for their recipes. Kitty is 13 at this point, so this is way back in Claremont's run. And we get to see Wolverine, Logan, making ramen in an apron. It's kind of funny.
Also rocking the Hugh Jackman leather jacket.
Yeah, and so we learn that Logan married some chick in Japan, separate from Mariko and everything. Married some chick here, had a kid, and so this family that he's protecting, they're descended from him.
Right.
And it's multiple generations. So I feel like this issue makes it seem that he's a lot older than he is, like, as revealed through stuff like Origin and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I prefer this, where you get a random story from Wolverine's background, but there's no origin reveal.
Like it's just a
That's how Wolverine should be.
Life in the past.
And so he fights the dudes, because the dudes realize, oh shit, this is like this multiple 100-year-old dude who is also like a samurai, and we should respect him. And so he's like, yeah, chill out. And he final panel, he reveals the snicked, and he's like, oh, also I have knives for hands, and I'll fuck you up. And this was fun, even though we didn't really need another spouse and children for Wolverine, even though they're not technically in this issue. He's now up to however many wives and however many children.
Yeah, it's just a factor at this point. I enjoyed Sam Keith going wild and crazy with a Wolverine Venom fight.
Yeah, so this is Wolverine in the brown and tan. He's in South America. Venom just like randomly comes up on him. Like it's set up. Wolverine's there to like deal with smugglers or drug traffickers or shit like that. And this story has nothing to do with that. Venom is just randomly also happens to be in South America. So they fight, and Wolverine references running into Venom before. That's Sam Keith's story from Marvel Comics Presents 117 to 122, which is cool. I could have used a footnote though. And he talks to Eddie, and Eddie's like, yeah, Venom isn't cool with me right now. Just fuck me up. And so he goes into a berserker rage, and that's it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. It's just Sam Keith art.
It's just Sam Keith going crazy. It was literally just a playground for him.
And then the house out in the back just killed it for me. I forgot about this
Weapon Plus program thing with
I forgot this was coming up. This is gonna be trash.
It's gonna be terrible.
So,
Though one of us might read it.
not me.
All right, over to DC though. Action Comics 1012. Wow, we're getting into big numbers on this book now. I like the daily. We open like with these recap pages. Normally it's like Clark's desk or Lois's desk. It's a Twitter page this time, and I really like the design of the layout for the Daily Planet here. I thought there's a lot of good, kind of clever things snuck in there with like ads for Jimmy Olsen's book and whatnot. But it's the secret society putting in like new code words that they can't talk about for as they're planning to take out Superman and what's going on with this Leviathan thing. Clark and Lois are talking in the new Fortress of Solitude in the Bermuda Triangle, and then that's it from them. As Lois is continuing to work on her story, investigating, Superman's going to go out and do some work of his own, and then basically the rest of this issue is just Robinson Good on the on her investigative trail as she runs into Rose and Thorn, who Rose and Thorn comes to tell her that she's been taking out these like these criminal gangs in Metropolis kind of brutally, and because it's Metropolis and they're doing it, the cops don't really want to touch it because he's helping her out, and it's kind of a weird thing there, but I enjoyed seeing Rose and Thorn. Bendis keeps pulling in like obscure DC characters, but then eventually she's come to be recruited by Leviathan. So this is all tying into the Leviathan event. So we'll see how this goes. This was really just kind of I want to say more of a building issue than anything, but I don't really know what to think of this. I didn't love it, didn't hate it.
Yeah, same. It kind of surprised me and was weird that Superman is basically barely in a Superman book.
Which is also not in Event Leviathan #1 like at all.
Yeah, and I think we may have skipped an issue of Superman. I think it was Superman where he had a crossover with Supergirl, and maybe
we skipped that crossover.
I think that may have had sort of to do with John and Jor-El and that kind of crap, because when Clark and Lois talk about stuff in this book, I'm like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right.
But Rose and Thorn was cool. Also, there's lots of references Apocalypse Drug, which I think was referenced in previous Leviathan and related stuff.
Right.
And the art here is by, I'm going to pronounce this first name wrong, but Simone Gadransky, who did a bunch of Spawn. And I thought the art was cool here. It's kind of an interesting, it's almost like a mix between, like, especially the scene with all the criminals. It is somewhat reminiscent of Alex Maleev and what he's doing in Event Leviathan. And other sequences, it's kind of a little bit more mainstream. And the Rose and Thorn pages were cool because they did like a panel layout border with thorns and roses and vines.
Yeah. It was good. I liked it though.
Yeah.
Detective Comics. What number are we on here? 1006 is Pete Tomasi is bringing the Spectre back to Gotham City. Is it Kyle Hoyts or Kyle Hotz?
I've always said Hotz.
All right, I'm going to say Hotz because there's no I there. Kyle Hotz is the issue on the artist on this. I'm assuming going to be the whole arc. Is Brad Walker was on the previous arc. So each arc of Tomasi's Detect run has featured a different artist.
Well, there's only been 2 arcs. No,
there's been 3.
Yeah.
Doug Mankey.
Sure.
Was on the first arc. But so the beginning of this is 2 Gotham City detectives, one of them being Jim Corrigan. They're investigating like this brutal murder in a backside alley as a dude was just lined up execution style. and his like brains are all splattered across the wall in Gotham City. And Jim Corrigan's then captured by this cult of specters that are all dressed up like him. So the Spectre comes and visits Batman and pulls him into the case. I'm liking this so far, and then it's revealed at the end that Jim Corrigan's been taken by, like, there's these cults of specters going around, and Batman has to find them as the Spectre wants to work with Batman. What do you think of this?
I really, really like this.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was cool.
I saw on Twitter that Kyle Hotz was very excited to draw Batman. It was like a big dream of his, which granted, I'm sure that's every comic artist, like really want to draw Batman, really want to draw Spider-Man.
There's some Brian Boland in his faces. It's really good.
Yeah, I was slightly surprised he's never drawn Batman. And at the same time, I think he's a perfect fit for the Spectre. Hotz, I mostly know him. I mean, it's not like he had a definitive run or anything, but he did a few like Carnage one shots in the 90s. So I kind of associate him with the symbiotes. And I think his style it's great for, there's a few shots of Batman's cape. There's one that's really cool, what Hotz does with the cape. And he does the Spectre well. It's also like slightly reminiscent of Mandrake, of course, the definitive modern Spectre artist from the Ostrander run.
Right.
And Tomasi, is playing into knows Spectre as well. And I think the cool part of someone like Tomasi is that he has that editor background, that in-house editor background. So he knows about all the DC characters. He should know about all the DC characters, especially since he's an editor of a previous era. So he knows everyone, knows everything. So you would expect him, now that Rebirth is a little bit looser, that he's going to have some cool guest stars and everything like that. We saw Etrigan earlier. But as far as the Spectre respect, as it were, in this book, this alley is on Bailey and Flesher streets, and Bernard Bailey is the artist co-creator of the Spectre, and Michael Flesher wrote the iconic 60s stories drawn by Jim Aparo, which were like much more violence and stuff. And there's also a really great splash page where the Spectre is like huge and first encounters Batman.
Yeah, he's really tall in Gotham City and grabs Batman.
This is really good. I think Tomasi clearly likes the Spectre. Obviously, we know he's good with Batman. Hotz is a perfect fit artistically, and I'm excited. I honestly thought this was going to be a one-off story. When I just knew that Spectre was coming up, I figured, are they going to do a full Spectre arc in the Batman book? But I'm excited to see where this goes. This is fun.
How is if the Spectre's connected to Jim Corrigan, how is he able to why is Jim Corrigan captured and the Spectre's able to like just come out?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. Like the Spectre is one of those characters where it's kind of unclear. The Spectre has transferred from host to host. I guess he's back to Jim Corrigan. I mean, whatever. I know the Spectre was like sort of used in certain stuff in the New 52. I'm sure they're just ignoring all that.
Oh yeah.
And I also wasn't entirely clear on that, because when they first show up, kind of seemed like some of them were floating and shit. So I wasn't sure if this was like a bunch of like actual Spectres, but it's clear it's just some cult. And then the real
it's a cult.
And just other parts of those scenes weren't 100% clear to me, because it seems like the real Spectre, like, he like jumps out of Corrigan's body and is like, yeah, Corrigan's kind of fucked here, and I don't feel like killing these cult members or something, so I'm just gonna run away and find Batman. This was really cool. Now my pick of the week for sure, Dial H number 4.
It's my pick of the week too. So
do you remember the girl's name? I always forget her name.
Off the top of my head right now, I forget. I think it's Summer.
Yeah, let's go with that, even if it's wrong. So Miguel and Summer, they get to Detroit, and a Batman robot tries to stop them. And there's a bunch of Justice League themed robots.
Well, yeah, they're at the base of Justice League Detroit.
Yeah.
A bunch of Justice League robots are patrolling it, and then Snapper Car comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it turns out Snapper, of course, was the original kind of sidekick to the Justice League, but infamously betrayed them.
Yeah, he's a traitor.
At times, has kind of gotten back in. Apparently, he did a reality show, which the League didn't like. But Green Arrow has given him this gig as a pity job.
Yeah.
And he used the dial at some point, so he wants his hands on it. There's this whole this story has this whole addiction angle with the dial. I very quickly tried to look up. I don't know if he ever actually used the dial in a comic book before. And then this Mr. Thunderbolt dude somehow manages to manipulate the robots and turn them on them. So all three of them dial in. And we have Chimp Change, which it's basically like Sin City, but like she's like a werewolf-esque character where her face turns into that of a chimp. And like the Sin City like homage is like on fucking point.
Oh, it's so good.
It's artistically, it's amazing. And then Humphreys does I mean, it's stereotypical and over the top, but he does some Frank Miller like edgy narration. And then Snapper turns into Alien Ice Cream Man, which is, I guess, just like some Mobius Jodorowsky nonsense. It's really amazing. And then Miguel turns into Lil Miguelito, which at the initial part, I wasn't certain what they're.
I count like 3 references when he turned to him.
Eventually, they reference the strips Hagar the Horrible and Nancy.
Right.
But
and I capped it. I got some Captain Underpants and then also Peanuts with Charles Schultz, and there's Calvin and Hobbes in there too.
There's definitely Peanuts because there's like a Snoopy outhouse kind of thing. And but at first I was like, and Captain Underpants, yeah, that's there. I almost was very briefly thinking of JL8, in fact.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. I got some there was one shot that was like really reminded me of Calvin and Hobbes for some reason.
But he's basically a comic strip character down with the Ben Davies.
Yeah, the scene where he has the underwear on his head and it's he's at the washing machine. Yeah, look, the text on the Lil Miguelito text is like exactly Calvin and Hobbes-esque.
Yeah. So and bits of these 3 characters and the art styles and everything, they flow between pages, interrupt each other, and then it ends. Miguel, basically just because he was just by chance was turned into a shitty superhero, he gets really angsty, and so Mr. Thunderbolt is able to manipulate him into handing over the H dial or touching the H dial, which I guess gives Mr. Thunderbolt his body back. And so he goes back to the Heroverse, and everything's gonna fuck up, and Miguel jumps into the portal and into the Heroverse. But this issue was just like it was amazing. It was like an artistic tour de force from Joe
Which
Quinones.
really every issue has been.
Yeah. But here, I mean, they basically step by step led us up, because initially we had, here's like one superhero, one person ringing the dial, and then one person plus a villain gets their hands on the dial, and then the girl started on the dial, and now there's like 3 people on the dial plus Mr. Thunderbolt. It's really great.
If Joe Quinones isn't nominated for an Eisner at the end of next year for this book, I'm going to be angry.
Yeah, he should be. This is amazing. I had no idea he was this versatile.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I know him for, it has the similar style, and it's the style that we see in most of this book, like the setup scenes and everything. It looks very similar to what he did on Howard the Duck and other books. But he's great, and I think Sam Humphries is probably doing his best work on this, because I've been mostly iffy on a lot of his other stuff, from Just League America to Wonder Woman to whatever else.
Yeah. This is fantastic, though. This was crazy, amazing fun, what I love in a comic book. And finally, our final book of the week, The Flash number 73, chapter 4 of the year 1 arc with Joshua Williamson and Howard Porter. We left the last issue with the Flash shot in the chest and with the bullet getting closer to his heart. So Barry has to, in order to save himself, rapidly vibrate his hand through his heart, like through his chest to grab the bullet. Which was a really, really cool sequence. And meanwhile, Iris is like knocking on the door, trying to have a heart to heart with him, thinking that he's not there, and leaves. And he's able to get the bullet out and hide his stuff just fast enough to open the door and be like, "Oh no, I was just in the shower." So their relationship kind of moves forward and gets bigger here, but he still won't kind of share with her his issues with his father being framed for his mother's murder.
Or that he's the Flash, of course. And I want to
he hasn't revealed that yet either.
I want to remind everyone, in the original Flash comics, Barry eventually reveals that he's the Flash to Iris. Iris says, "No, I've known that for a long time because you talk in your sleep."
That is correct. But Barry's taking his job as a crime scene investigator, somehow getting a ways to interview the turtle because he gets the interview time because he needs to retake his fingerprints, which was a little bit a clever thing there. But when we get an origin of the turtle, which I thought was interesting, I don't really know the turtle at all. So Vince, you can chime in here if this is the correct origin.
I don't either, and didn't think to look it up. I'm just gonna hope and assume that this is the correct origin.
I'm gonna assume as well, knowing that Williamson's a huge Flash fan. But getting back to there, as Barry's focusing on it, on the case, he kind of snaps at Iris a bit, and they kind of have a breakdown. But everything kind of goes crazy as lightning bolts start shining across the city, and the future Barry and the future Turtle are now back in the regular past timeline. So we'll see what happens next. This was still really, really good.
Yeah, the self-administered surgery scene is fucking metal as hell. Like, that's a really cool feat. I don't know that I've ever seen that from the Flash. And the final splash page is awesome too, where it's the turtle with old man Barry in chains on the cosmic treadmill.
Yep.
It's pretty awesome. Again, the title of this story arc, Flash Year 1, is a total fucking lie.
Yeah, it really is.
Or totally misleading. And my other comment that I make every issue is I really can't wait for him to get in a fucking costume. I mean, granted, I hate this new 52 costume.
I'm not a big fan of the Year 1 costume, but I don't know if you've seen on Williamson's Twitter, some people have already started cosplaying it. He was taking pictures with a guy who was cosplaying it already at cons, so that was pretty neat, at least.
Well, it's what? A red t-shirt, jeans, shoes, and stupid things on your ears?
Elbow pads and knee pads and, like, spy goggles.
I'll have to check that out, though.
But yeah, we'll just that. And hey, that's your show for this week. I don't think there's any books we really hated. You probably had some books you hated, but I mostly enjoyed everything we read this week except for Marvel Premiere.
Yeah. I really hated Major X.
Well, I didn't read that, so
yeah. You were spared.
You could say you're happy that it's finally over now.
Yes, it's done. And everyone who sat through the whole show, big reveal, our legacy book, retro book, whatever we call it, Thor number 412 by Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends.
Is that going to be good?
It's the first appearance of the New Warriors.
I hate you so much.
Tune in next week for that.
Bye-bye.